This video looks at the surface layout, the most important piece of the system as far as you're concerned, which is the user interface, or what we used to call the console. MIDAS PRO3, PRO6 and PRO9 consoles are identical. The difference is in the number of inputs and the number of mix buses that they have. The good thing about that means that you only have to learn how to operate a single user interface, and you can then take that knowledge and apply it to any one of those three consoles. So if you can stay awake through this bit, you will know how to operate all of the Pro Series range. The console's divided into some very obvious areas of hardware. This side of the console is obviously all about inputs. The center of the console is VCAs and mix buses, local monitoring, and the right-hand side of the console again is dedicated to inputs. So you have very well-defined areas of the console to go to implement control. All of the small round buttons have no audio function. So I can poke the little round buttons and I'm not going to turn anything on, off, change any routing or changing any audio. So if I'm not confident about operating the console, I can be confident that the navigation buttons are purely going to give me visual support for whatever it is I've just selected. It also takes the selected parameters and places them on the input strip. So using the select buttons, I can hop around the console from any channel to any other channel to any function, as well as using the large select buttons to recall the appropriate inputs. The right-hand screen is divided into four obvious areas. This gives me visual support for whichever channel strip is currently selected over here. It gives me visual support for the four input channels on the right of the console. It gives me a summary of my snapshot automation, and it also gives me my meters page. This gives me all of my input meters, all of my output meters, all of the dynamics processing metering. Also, if a channel is muted, I can see it on that screen, and if a channel is soloed, I can see it on that screen. The little yellow spot at the bottom of each meter tells me that the faders are open for those channels. So that screen is telling me everything that's going on in the console from an audio perspective. The center of the console is where I have my VCA faders. The VCAs are only ever VCAs, they never change function. There are a number of key controls on the surface which never change function. So when you're operating the console, you can react very quickly to audio changes. You can grab a control and be confident that you have got hold of the control which you intended. The control isn't performing an alternative function at that time. The center of the console has the bus section and also the select buttons for these two banks of 8 controls. Currently I'm looking at aux sends 1 through 8 and matrix sends 1 through 8. So this allows me instant access into any one of these mix buses, and if the console is in fader flip, as it currently is, given the position of this hardware button, if now I select any of these outputs, the faders flip to become the contributions to the selected output. So it's very, very quick and easy to navigate this as a monitor console. You just select the mix, the faders become the contributions to the selected mix, and it's very easy to jump back out of that mode at the single press of a button. Also, if you have the Clark Technic DN9331 Rapide hardware remote controller for the graphic EQs, as a monitor engineer, all I have to do is hit the solo button for a mix. I then get that mix in my cue system. I get the graphic EQ for that output on my Rapide, and I get the faders flip to become the contributions to the selected output. Now that is a lot faster than you can do with any collection of analog hardware. Nearest to me on this area of the console, we have dual redundant trackballs. These operate the pointing devices on the left and right screens. Hopefully, if you're mixing on the console, you should never have to touch these. You'll find a hardware control for every function you need to perform while you're mixing. The trackballs should only be used for patching, routing, assigning, and actually setting the console up. Just above the trackballs, we have the hardware support for the dual solo systems. Dual solo systems can obviously be used by dual operators if you have two people operating the console, or if you're, again, mixing monitors, you could have one solo system for your cue wedges and the second solo system for your in-ear system. All of the outputs can be predetermined to either appear on solo bus A or solo bus B. So if you're having a mixture of loudspeaker mixes and in-ear mixes, you can predetermine where those outputs go to on the solo buses. So then soloing the appropriate output means that that audio appears in the appropriate set of transducers.